All right, let's get going. Good morning. I'm Jeannie Bestranen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Summit Foundation. And on behalf of the staff and the Board of Directors of the Summit Foundation, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us and to learn more about what's happening, kind of look back to where we've been, what's happening now, and where we're going in the future. We are recording this session for those who couldn't join us this morning, and so just to let you know, it will be available for people to look at and view after this morning. Because we have so many people on the call today, we are asking you to put your questions and comments in the chat box, which you can see there on your screen, and we will monitor that and we will answer your questions as we go along. The purpose for today is just to kind of, as I said, take a look back, see where we are today, but most of all, to thank you. Thank each and every one of you for the support that you have given to our community, for the hard work that you have done in terms of helping everybody that needed assistance during this time. We really, really appreciate that. And I'd like to especially give a special thanks to the staff of the Summit Foundation, as well as our board of directors. You know, our staff is just so amazing. They have really been willing to pivot during this very difficult time. And our board of directors has really stepped up to give us guidance and support, which we really appreciate. You can see that together we make a difference. We appreciate each and every person that really stepped up to help the community at this time. And we just literally can't thank you enough. For the Summit Foundation, it's important for us to also give a special shout out to our ski area partners, because our ski area partners, as you all know, provide the medallions, which you in turn purchase. And that brings in over $1 million to the Summit Foundation, which of course we in turn distribute to the community. So a huge thanks to our local ski areas, and especially for this year, they have really worked to provide a lot of value for the medallions, even during this difficult time. So we really, really thank our ski area partners for everything they do. We are also really fortunate to in this community that every one of them provides additional support in terms of grants and in-kind services. And so we're just fortunate to have such a great business community that supports our community and especially the ski area. So we appreciate that so much. So let's get started and let's take a look back. Our staff, in particular, Kate and Brian, put together a very brief video kind of looking at the journey that we've all had in these past 7 months. So let's take a look at that now.
At the beginning of 2020, our community was faced with unprecedented change and an overwhelming need for basic human services. With your support, the Summit Foundation reacted quickly to establish the Summit County Cares Emergency Fund to aid the frontline nonprofits addressing the urgent needs of our community. Your support provided over $350,000 in grants to nonprofits with immediate emergency needs. You helped provide mental health services, warm meals, school supplies, and food bank resources when our community needed it most. On top of providing emergency relief funding, you helped us award over $300,000 in scholarships to 121 students and $115,000 in grants to Summit County's child care centers to help with their increased expenses due to the pandemic. You are what makes this community great. You are the soul of the Summit.
Wow, that video really makes you think about everything that we've been through in the past 7 months. And, you know, the amazing thing is that we all came together to help each other. So today, we just want to today's agenda, we just wanted to talk about the Summit Foundation and, of course, the impact that we've been able to have through your generosity. We want to talk about the community needs and the assistance that was provided through the emergency fund, as well as what we have learned and kind of a look toward the future, even though there's so much uncertainty, kind of look toward what we might be able to do in the coming months and years. As we mentioned in the video, at the beginning of the pandemic in mid-March, immediately we activated the Summit County Cares Emergency Fund. We started that fund with a big donation from Harriet Bobo's bequest, and then did the fundraising to put money into the emergency fund. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you donated to the Summit County Cares Fund, and we appreciate that so much. And we're able to raise over $600,000. So thank you to all of our generous donors, from the six-figure donors to the $25 donors. It really adds up, and we appreciate that so much. Thank you. The Summit County Cares Fund is what we call a rapid response fund. And the way that that works is that we only fund our trusted community partners. And so as our trusted community partners have a need, they let us know, and they let us know how much that is. And then we get those funds out to the community partners immediately. In fact, we set it up so that we had an electronic transfer directly to their bank account. And so our community partners can apply multiple times for whatever they need in terms of emergency assistance. And this is what we have funded so far. We're proud to let you know that we have been able to completely fill every single emergency request that we have gotten from our community partners. And so we trust them. We have been able to give them all of the money. And as you can see, it's been over $400,000 so far. Just to remind you, the Summit County Cares Fund is separate and above and beyond the grants that come from the Summit Foundation. So this is totally separate. And as you can see, at the beginning of the pandemic, the main need was food and utility assistance and emergency assistance. And then as we moved into reopening, the needs became for childcare centers and for after-school programs. And so we provided support around that because there was increased staffing needs for the requirements of COVID. We would also like to give a shout out to all of the towns who provided rent assistance to FERC. FERC helped over 1,100 people with rental assistance, and that is about 100 times more than the typical number that they serve. And so thank you to the towns, and also thank you to the county for the significant support that they provided as well for our workers and for our workforce. Another really important component of the emergency fund was the mental health needs that increased as we go on, and we still see an increase in that today. So super, super thankful for our community partners, especially FERC. As we know, the bulk of the assistance fell on FERC to help the people in our community. And if we were here in person, we would give a round of applause to FERC. So thank you, FERC, for everything that you have done and always do for our community. In addition to them, we have a list here of the other community partners that received grants through the emergency fund, and we thank each and every one of them for everything that they have done and are continuing to do. I think it's really impressive that all of our nonprofits really stepped up to help, and we had tremendous collaboration during this time, and it continues even now. The nonprofits that were not providing direct emergency services were willing to step forward and say, you know, how can we help? What can we do? What leadership can we provide? And how can our staff help? And I would like to acknowledge specifically the arts community, the Lake Dillon Theater Company, Breck Music, Breck Create, as well as the nonprofits, the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, Friends of the Dillon Ranger District. All of these nonprofits, even though they weren't providing direct services, they stepped forward to say, we're willing to help and we're willing to stand behind all of these direct service organizations in our community. We just appreciate that so much. So you may be wondering, hey, there's some money left in that emergency fund. And in fact, we are very thankful that there's some money left in the emergency fund, because we continue to see the needs in our community are there, and we will continue to help support those needs as time goes on. And those continue to be things like food, because even though people are able to go back to work a little bit, they may be going back part-time, they need help to make ends meet during the month. We have a huge need on school-age childcare, and we may need to, there's a collaboration in the community working on that, led by the Keystone Science School, and we may need some funds to help make sure that families can get quality childcare as time goes on. And then, as I said, the mental health needs in the community really have increased substantially. We all know the impact that that has had on our own mental health, and of course, we see that pervasive throughout our community. And during these uncertain times, we don't know what might be around the corner, and so we are ready and willing to help with any future or unforeseen needs that may come up. So I've touched a little bit on our current community needs. The unemployment right now is around 10%. At the height of the pandemic and when everything shut down, it was over 21%, which was, of course, a huge crisis. We continue to be the second highest in Colorado, and that, of course, is based on our tourism economy and the impact that that has. So as things start to reopen, that is getting a little bit better. I mentioned that mental health is an issue. We also, you know, it's interesting with this situation, issues that have kind of been hanging over your head or that you knew about all along. Some of those issues really became glaring during COVID, and equity and the social inequities within our community is one of those. So we all knew that there were hidden needs, and that there were, especially with the service industry and the workforce with the service industry, we knew that there were issues, and those became even more clear as during the pandemic and as we move forward. And then I mentioned school and childcare. And of course, the school district has done an amazing job reopening school. And sometimes they have to have quarantines that obviously are unannounced. And so that kind of puts our families who don't have flexibility within their jobs in a situation where they need to find childcare immediately. So we will continue to work on all of these needs and more as we move forward. So, you know, during this time, we spoke a lot about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You probably remember that from your college days. And it really is applicable, because people need those basic needs met before they can think about basically anything else. And so we're thinking about that. We have that on our mind as things move forward. So perhaps I'll stop here for a minute and see if we have any questions from the audience that we could answer.
Yeah, Jeannie, we don't have any questions so far, but if you do have any questions, please put them in the questions box and I'll be sure to get Jeannie's attention.
Thank you. So the next thing that we thought we would share with you this morning is that the Summit Foundation did a nonprofit survey, a survey of our nonprofits. And we did that at the end of August just to get an idea of where people are and where people think that they will be going in the future. And so this is a recent survey. And the first question that we asked is, how has your organization been impacted by the pandemic? And the thing that was most significant is the decreased revenue. And this is really a significant issue within our community. All of the nonprofits have really faced decreased revenue because of canceled programming, because of canceled fundraising events, and we asked them what their revenue shortfalls are. The average revenue shortfall among our community partners is 20%, but some have been up to 50%. And so we don't know exactly how much money that represents, but we know it's at least $7 million and up to 20 million. And so, of course, there's not enough philanthropy in our community to cover those shortfalls. And so the nonprofits, and including the Summit Foundation, now is the time to get back to basics and to look at the most critical programs. And so the nonprofits during COVID, they shifted their programs, they revamped their programs, either to virtual programming, or perhaps they needed to look at different ways to offer their programs or cancel them altogether. And you can see that many of them had revised their budgets downward in order to keep going and in order to meet the needs of their organization. They also looked at increased collaboration, and of course, increased fundraising will be an issue moving forward. We asked the nonprofits how the Summit Foundation could be supportive during this time, and not surprisingly, most of them, over 80%, said that they would like an increased grant from the Summit Foundation, and that was not surprising, especially during this time. They also asked if the Summit Foundation would continue to convene the community leaders and look at issues in the community, and also provide opportunities for them to learn from each other, because we have such smart, capable people running our nonprofits. It's really important for them to be able to talk to each other and learn from each other. It's interesting because the Summit Foundation funds 90 nonprofits within our community, which of course is a wonderful thing. But as times get tight, we need to look at the number of nonprofits that we have. We know for sure that we don't have any duplication, because we look at that when we evaluate the nonprofit grant request. So we don't have duplication in the community, but we do have nonprofits that are similar in mission. And so during the survey, we did ask them, would you consider merging with another nonprofit if that made sense? And it was interesting because about half of them said they would consider it if it made sense. But then we have almost just as many that said no, they would be opposed to merging with another nonprofit. So that was very interesting to us. And then, of course, another idea in terms of efficiency and reducing cost would be shared administrative services among similar nonprofits, such as childcare, which is being piloted, I think, in Breckenridge right now. And that would be where they would have a person that would do human resources for them or accounting, and so that they would not have to worry about that or spend money on the exact same services. So we looked at those, and it was interesting because, over 70% said that the nonprofit said they might consider shared services. So that's kind of the highlights from our survey. And so do we have any questions at this point?
I think we're okay for right now, Jeannie. We got a couple we'll save towards the end.
Okay, thank you. So now let's talk a little bit about what we've learned from this experience, what we've learned in the past 7 months. And so first and foremost, we think what we have learned is that we really care about each other. as I mentioned, people are willing to step up. People are willing to put the needs of the community above their own needs and their own organizational needs, which is really quite unusual. And so that is really a key component to our community and something that we are really grateful for. In addition, leadership is key. And so during this crisis, and really any time, but especially during a crisis, you know, it's really interesting to see the leaders in our community and how people step up, and the integrity that we have, you know, the willingness of people to do the right thing for the good of the community, and we really appreciate that. And like we said, I mean, that synergy and that collaboration between all of the organizations as well as the other entities is just really key at all times. But especially when we're in a time like this, we really all need to work together. And so what have we learned in terms of, you know, things that we're concerned about, things that we think need to be considered for now and looking into the future, is that, next slide, please. Is that, first of all, like I said, these significant revenue shortfalls, those really go across all sectors. And so we need to look at that as we move forward and how we can help the nonprofits to be able to stay in business and help the nonprofits to come out okay on the other side of this, whenever that might be. I've also mentioned equity a couple of times. You know, our cost of living here and the tourism-based economy is just a very difficult issue to address. And like I said, it's something that we have been looking at all along and will continue to look at. We are, as a community, we provide subsidies for people to be able to live here. And so, you know, we'll just keep working on different innovative solutions to make sure that the people that work here are able to live here and that we have a very robust community and a diverse community. The reliance on tourism, of course, is critical, and we all know from the statistics provided that our tourism is about 80% of our economy. And again, that's something that we have been very well aware of, and looking at the diversification of the economy. The Summit Prosperity Initiative is now under the Chamber of Commerce, and this is obviously a long-term strategy, but something that we need to look at. And it's really important that we not operate in silos. Everything that we do to help people in our community is interrelated, and it is really important that we all work together and not separately, so that we can be most efficient. And we're a small community, and we can really do that. And like I said, I think that we do that, and we'll continue to look at ways that we can address all of these issues and more. For the Summit Foundation itself, we wanted to just kind of give you a little snapshot on how we're doing. 80% of our fundraising is in December of each year. And so last year we did really well thanks to the generosity of our donors. And so when COVID hit in March, we were able to keep our grants budget, and we were able to keep our scholarship budget at what it was, what we had planned to distribute to the community. And we were really thankful for that, because we had already raised that money at the end of last year. And so for the Summit Foundation, we had significant reduced revenue from our 2020 events. Of course, our golf tournament was totally canceled. We couldn't have that. The duck race, we pivoted to a virtual duck race. And so I hope that you all joined that, enjoyed that. And that was a lot of fun. And we raised about half as much money as we typically do. So we appreciate your support on that. And of course, the Parade of Homes was canceled too. So all of the events that we had for this fiscal year were way down. But we are really thankful that we were able to keep our grants and scholarships at the same level. We did adjust our budget, of course, just like everybody did. And we need to ask you to please, if you're willing and able, please support us in December. Your support will be needed more now than it ever has been, and so we're asking for your support. And you would have been disappointed if we hadn't asked for money during this presentation, but not today. We can wait until December. We're taking a leap of faith in terms of our budget for this upcoming fiscal year, and we have kept our grants and scholarship budget at the same level as it was last year, because we are confident that we will be able to raise those funds from our generous community. We have not tapped into our endowment fund, thankfully, because we haven't needed to so far, but of course we will be willing to support the community in whatever way we need to moving forward. So in advance of looking at what we're doing in terms of the grant strategy, we had the spring grant cycle kind of in the middle of the pandemic. And of course, at that time when things were like so hectic, there was some opinions that we should support only Health and Human Services. And we decided as a Summit Foundation that as a community foundation, the fabric of our community is made up of so many different aspects. And so we decided that we will continue to fund in every single category through our grants budget. And we are committed to do that. At the same time, when times are tough, you kind of have to look at what are the most critical nonprofits, what are the most critical programs in our community, and really focus on that. So we'll be doing that. We did that during our spring grant cycle. We'll be doing that during the fall. And that makes a lot of sense to us. And we want to support every aspect of our community. Looking ahead, if you ask anyone, what are you concerned about? They will tell you winter, and we are all concerned about winter. We want to make sure that the winter season is as successful as possible while still keeping the health and safety of everyone first and foremost. And so for us, when we think about the community, when we think about the Summit Foundation, there's a few things that really stick out for us. And as we said, that's fundraising, not just for ourselves, but for our entire community. One of the issues that we knew before COVID hit was that many of our loyal donors are having to move out of the community for health reasons. And while they're still very supportive of the Summit Foundation and the community, we recognize that that may change as time goes on. And so we had new people moving into the community even before COVID, and with everybody recognizing that they can work at home from anywhere, as you all know, we have a lot of new residents moving in. So the Summit Foundation will be looking at strategies to do some intentional outreach to those new residents and invite them to join us in supporting the community and keeping that spirit of philanthropy in Summit County, which is so critical. And from our perspective, it's not just about the money, but it's also about that strong community value that we have for people to give back. And so, of course, the last thing that we want to do is to have these new residents bombarded by, all these different nonprofits that are asking for their support. So we're going to try to have a collaborative effort behind that so that we can welcome people and so that we can ask people to support the community and engage them right away. So we could use your help on that as you meet your new neighbors. Please let them know that this is a community where we give back. And like I said, we'll have a marketing campaign behind that. And then once we can all get together, we are excited to maybe host some welcome receptions for new residents so they can meet each other and so that they can meet people who are engaged in the community. We will continue to look at the collaboration between our nonprofits and make sure that we don't get into a competitive spirit with each other, which is kind of sort of natural when we have a crisis, people sometimes become competitive. So we certainly don't want that. And we want to make sure that our nonprofits survive. We have not heard of any that have gone out of business. And we hope that we don't, so we'll keep an eye on that. In terms of the Summit Foundation and our special initiatives, right now we are focusing our innovation toward looking at the impact of this COVID crisis and what we can do to help with that. And so for now, we will focus on that. As you all know, our special initiatives of Building Hope and the Peak Health Alliance, they have spun off on their own and they are doing excellent work on their own. And then Pre-Collegiate is embedded at the high school these days. The Catch after school program for low income families, we may need to help that a little bit. And then Mountain Scholars is our current special initiative that helps the low income first generation college students to complete college. And that is our collaboration with Colorado Mountain College and the school district. So that is pretty much how we're looking, and that is what we're thinking. And so would be happy to answer any questions that we might have, and then we'll close up.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. We do have a few questions for you. The first one is an interesting one. With this crisis, it's really kind of created a dichotomy between the haves and have-nots. So with the recovery efforts, seem to be the haves are doing much better and the have-nots are doing way worse. How do we expect this to change in our community? Do we see this affecting that?
That is an excellent question, and I think that's one of those issues that has always been the case in Summit County, just because of the nature of our economy, and again, that tourism-based business. And so I would say that until we can diversify the economy, we'll probably continue to have what this person calls the haves and the have-nots. And so what we want to do is to try to bridge that gap as much as possible, because we know that people that work in the service industry don't make a lot of money, and probably from an economic standpoint, from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense for them to to have a high wage. But we want to make sure that we have a livable wage. And so we want to support our families and our workers as much as possible so that they can continue to live here. And so we want it, that's part of the equity conversation as well, in terms of we don't want it to be haves and have-nots. We want to provide an opportunity for everyone to be successful here and for everyone to be able to thrive. And so I would say from the Summit Foundation point of view, as well as from our community partner point of view, that is probably the biggest issue that we're working on and will continue to work on.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. We have another question. Why doesn't the Summit Foundation support small businesses?
So for the Summit Foundation, we have to get a special dispensation legally to directly support small businesses. And so we have decided that the way that we can be most helpful is to support the workforce and to help the workforce so that the small businesses can have their workers be ready and willing to work. And so that's kind of the way that we support small businesses, is through the efforts that we're doing for the workforce.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. We have another one. How does childcare fall under emergency needs?
Yeah, so that's a good question as well. And so again, kind of when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people need to be able to go to work. In order to go to work, they need to have childcare for their children, and the childcare centers, because of the COVID response, as well as the schools, they need extra space to meet the COVID requirements. They need extra staff to meet the COVID requirements. And so, you know, when you think about childcare in terms of people getting back to work, it's actually a key component for our families.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. And we have another question. Did the Summit Foundation receive any money from the Summit County CARES Fund?
Oh, yeah. So I should have mentioned that earlier, but we did not. I mean, we did not charge any fees. We did not charge any administrative costs. We did all of the Summit County CARES fundraising and distribution as part of our regular work. So we did not charge anything, and made sure that 100% of that money went back directly to our community partners to address the needs in our community.
Great. And what are the financial needs of the Summit Foundation in general? How is our endowment doing? Yeah, how are we looking, Jeannie? I know you did touch on this earlier, but it'd just be good to talk about those immediate needs.
You bet. Thank you. Well, thanks for asking, first of all. So like I said, we just started our new fiscal year last week. And Sandy, our finance director, said Happy New Year. So we're taking a leap of faith in terms of keeping our budget, our grants budget, our scholarship budget, everything that we do for the community. We are hoping to keep that at the same level, if not increase, because as you can see, the needs in the community are great. So mainly what we need right now is support for our general fund. And so everybody will be getting a letter, you know, at the end of the year, during the fundraising season, during the holiday season, asking for you to donate to the Summit Foundation. And so I would say right now, our main need is that support for the foundation, so that we can get that back out to the community.
Great, thanks, Jeannie. We just have a couple more questions. There's a big push in the nonprofit sector to overhaul DAFs, or at least have donors give away larger percentages of what they have set aside in their DAF. How is the Summit Foundation encouraging your DAF funders to give away money now, opposed to holding it in their DAF?
So for those of you that don't know, DAF is donor advised funds, and we have about 60 donor advised funds at the Summit Foundation that individuals and businesses have set up in order to support the community. And so there's a couple of ways that we work with our donor advised funds to donate to the community. We work with our donor advised funds through our regular grant cycle, to encourage them to support the nonprofits, which they do. And then in addition to that, during this time, we have kept our donor advised funds informed of what's going on in the community and encourage them. So we actually don't have a requirement that our donor advised funds donate to the community. But we do have guidelines where the donor advised funds at the Summit Foundation do need to support the nonprofits in the community. And so even though we don't have a requirement, we keep an eye on it. And if we see that we have donor advised funds that are, you know, maybe not as active or dormant, we will actually reach out to them and ask them to either donate to the Summit Foundation through their donor advised fund, or to other nonprofits in the community. And so we keep an eye on that. We don't charge fees for our donor advised funds, and so we just do that as a service to the community. And so we feel that it's very important for them to be active. So I would answer that question by saying we do that on an informal basis. And I would say in general, we don't have an issue with our donor advised funds being inactive within our community.
Great. We got one more question, Jeannie. Are there still medallions available, and how will the medallion program be different for the 2021 season?
We appreciate you asking about medallions, and we're happy to report that our medallions are sold out, which is really incredible during this time. So thanks to each and every one of you that have purchased a medallion, and we ask that you keep in mind, even though the medallions are so wonderful to have, please keep in mind that by buying a medallion, you're supporting the community, and that is really important. So the medallions are philanthropic. And I have a note here from Taryn, our development director, and she's saying we have just a couple left. So we still have just a couple of medallions left. And so I guess first come, first serve. If you get in touch with Taryn, you might be able to get a medallion. Otherwise, we'll put you on the wait list for next year. And in terms of how it's going to work, our ski area partners, we're just really thankful that they, for the medallion holders, they are asking the medallion holders to follow the same rules, protocol that the season pass holders have. So we're really thankful for that, and that's a huge value to our medallion holders. So thanks to all of you for your generous support of the medallions.
Jeannie, that's all we have in the question box. So I'll let you know if anything else comes up. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brian. So to wrap up, we will have our president of our board of directors, Cindy Bargell, make a few closing remarks, and then we will be finished. And thanks again to everybody for your support. Thank you for all your hard work. It's just truly amazing, and we wanted you to know that we appreciate it so much. Cindy?
Hi guys, thanks Jeannie, thanks staff, thanks for the great presentation and the ability to connect with folks. You guys have been amazing through these last 7 months, and it's truly appreciated. As Jeannie said, soon you'll see our annual campaign letter, and we are really proud for over 35 years to have been the soul of the summit. But this year, more than any other year, in my recollection anyway, is you all are the lifeline of the summit. And just let that sink in for a second. There's a lot of definitions of lifeline. It's that line on your palm. It's the line on a hospital screen that goes by. And you've been those, but even more viscerally, what you've been is the line that gets thrown from a boat to people who are drowning. And you start to pull them to safety and to security. During these unprecedented times, you've helped people stop from drowning, either from mental health crisis or food crisis, all of the things that we've all experienced at different levels. But even more interesting, that visual of a lifeline is a direct connection from your hands and heart to real people and real organizations in our community. And it's just so appreciated. And it's that line that the Summit Foundation is going to take hold of and continue to pull through this coming year. It really hasn't been an easy season. No, normal has really not been anywhere in sight. And so from our perspective, it is that virtual lifeline we have right now that tethers us together, that keeps us together, and creates a fabric that becomes really the soul of the summit. So Jeannie said a lot, and while I really hope we can connect together physically and see each other in the near future, until that time, just know that we so appreciate you being a lifeline. Thank you. And that really concludes the formal portion of our program. Thanks for taking time out of your day. Thanks staff, thanks to the donors. Thanks for being Summit County's lifeline. Bye all. Have a great rest of the week.